The cameras popped like thunder outside the courthouse. Reporters rushed the steps, microphones jammed forward, voices crashing together in a hail of questions. Christine? Is it true you were concealing evidence? Christine, do you regret walking away from Kody now? Christine? Are you worried about what's being revealed in court? Every question pierced the air with tension. But Christine didn't bat an eye. Her head remained high, her chin lifted in quiet defiance, the way that only a woman who had survived years of being manipulated would. The sun shone brightly in the morning light as she pushed open the glass doors, entering a building scented with old wood, dust, and judgment. Within its walls, history was to be made. Christine wasn't merely another witness appearing in the witness stand. She wasn't a secondary character in someone else's court case. She was the heroine, the woman who had once stood with Kody Brown as a spouse, who had brought up children amidst the turmoil of plural marriage, who had retreated from the sister wives' empire with nothing but freedom. And now she was at the very eye of a hurricane. No one could have anticipated. The courtroom hummed with murmurs as Christine came in. The audience was packed. Show fans, journalists holding notebooks, strangers who had been attracted by the scandal of it all. Even the bailiff seemed to eye her more intently than usual, as if he picked up on the gravity of her presence. Christine walked deliberately, slowly. Her heels clicked against the shining floor, the echo of each sound counting down. She felt the stares branding her back, but she didn't flinch. She'd endured humiliation before, on the screen, in public, in private. She could endure it again. In the front of the room, the judge pushed up his glasses and looked over the case file. His expression was impossible to read, chiseled from stone. Then, with a sharp crack of his gavel, the mood changed. "This court is now in session." The words rippled across the room. Christine sat down at the defense table. Something was whispered to her by her lawyer. Something calm, reassuring. But she hardly heard him. Her attention was concentrated on the other side of the room. The prosecution were seated tightly, papers piled neatly, eyes cold and calculating. And seated with them were the people who had once been family. Robin Brown's face was strained, her eyes narrow slits of suspicion. She did not conceal her glare. She wished Christine to notice the hate, to sense it. To Robin, Christine was more than a witness. She was a traitor. The woman who had broken the dream of unity. The one who had opened cracks in the family that Robin still clung to. Next to her sat Janelle, her arms crossed, her face conflicted. She wasn't scowling like Robin, but she wasn't grinning either. Janelle's allegiance had always been tricky, divided between what was right, what was safe, and what she could stomach. Mary sat back farther, her hands wrapped tightly in her lap. Her expression was unyielding, but her eyes revealed something beneath. Fear maybe, or shame. Mary had witnessed too much, suffered too much, and now she was trapped in the crossfire once again. And then there was Kody. Kody slumped back in his chair with a smile twitching at the corner of his lips, as if he had already triumphed. His golden ringlets surrounded a face that had once captivated millions, but now appeared chiseled from haughtiness. He observed Christine with the assurance of a man who believed she would fall apart under duress, a man who believed his authority was beyond reach. Christine returned his gaze and would not avert her eyes. Her chest heaved, her hands were moist, but her gaze was firm. She had lived too long in his shadow. She would not be intimidated now. The clerk started to recite the charges. Christine's name rang out across the room, attached to an allegation so weighty that it came close to stripping the air from her body. She was accused of hiding a secret regarding Kody Brown, a secret so sinister it could have resulted in tragedy. Gasps spread through the gallery. Even the cameras appeared to lean in tighter. Christine remained rigid. She could sense the blood pounding within her ears, the pressure of all eyes on her. But she didn't crack. She had been portrayed for years as the wild one, the wife who couldn't handle polygamy, the one who left. They believed they knew her tale. But this was something different. This wasn't divorce or love. This was about truth. Her attorney leaned forward, his voice low. "Just remember, they will try to spin everything around. Don't let them see fear." Fear? Christine came close to laughter. What was fear really in comparison to what she had already endured? Tear-filled nights behind the closed doors. Moments of betrayal flashed for the entire world to see. The ever-present sense of being less than in Kody's vision. No, fear was not something new. The prosecutor rose, his voice booming and cutting. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today you will witness how Christine Brown knowingly withheld evidence. Evidence which could have altered lives. Evidence which could have avoided suffering. Evidence which could have told the truth about Kody Brown years ago. She could have stopped what occurred. And she remained silent. There was a murmur in the gallery. Robin's mouth curled into a nasty smile. Christine balled her fists beneath the table. It wasn't quiet, she wanted to shout. It was survival. But not now. The prosecutor droned on, labeling her a woman who craved revenge, who was starved for attention, who would do anything to destroy Kody. Each sentence cut like a knife. When he finally sat down, Kody leaned in and whispered something to Robin that made her smirk grow wider. The two of them were smug-looking, like the trial was already over. Christine's attorney stood up. His tone was level but unyielding, piercing the fog of rumor. Christine Brown is not the bad guy in this tale. She is the truth bringer. She is the survivor. And what she has borne, what she will tell you here, is not devastation. It is freedom. At the conclusion of this trial, you will realize that the true secret doesn't reside in Christine at all. It resides in Kody. The jury shifted uncomfortably. The tension was thick, heavy like a storm waiting to break. Christine inhaled slowly, steadying herself. This was only the beginning. She glanced around the courtroom once more. Robin's glare, Janelle's uncertainty, Mary's silence, Kody's arrogance. They were all pieces of the same story. A story that had been hidden for too long. But today, under the harsh lights of the courtroom, there would be no hiding. Christine's heart pounded in defiance. She was not going down without a struggle. And with each new gavel strike, she muttered under her breath, barely loud enough for anyone to catch. It's time the world finally knows the truth. The quiet in the courtroom didn't last long. After the charges had been read, the prosecutor did not hesitate in focusing the limelight on Christine. His words were laced with accusation, every syllable crafted to pierce her resolve. Christine Brown, he started, walking slowly in front of the jury. This isn't simply a matter of one woman leaving a plural marriage. This is about a cover-up. This is about someone who knew something, harmful knowledge, and kept it secret until it was much too late. You will hear the evidence. You will hear the testimony. And after this trial, you will realize the harm her silence inflicted. Each word reverberated like a hammer ringing steel. Christine wrestled her breathing to remain constant. She wouldn't let him have the pleasure of a response yet, but she couldn't help turning to the gallery. The seats were packed with known faces, with individuals who had been a part of her daily existence. Now they were observers, witnesses, or something worse, enemies. Robin stood in the front row, as rigid as a rock, her chin up in arrogance. Her lips were set in a thin, self-satisfied smile, as if she knew the outcome before it came. Christine's jaw clenched. Robin had always been the innocent, the submissive wife. But Christine knew the truth. She knew how easily Robin spoke softly into Kody's ear, how easily she stoked the fire between the wives. And now here she was again, stoking suspicion, her glare cutting like glass. Beside her, Janelle seemed different. She wasn't glaring like Robin. And she wasn't smiling either. She had her arms crossed, her shoulders braced, her face split down the middle. Christine's heart hurt as she looked at her old friend, her ally. But things were complicated in this family, and Christine could almost see the math running through Janelle's head. Who to believe? Who to trust? Which truth was safest? Mary sat further back, her hands folded so tightly in her lap. The knuckles were white. She didn't say a word. She didn't even shift. But that silence screamed louder than words ever could. Mary had always been the one clinging to the dream of family, even when it fell apart in her hands. Now Christine couldn't decide if that silence was fear or betrayal. And then there was Kody. Kody did not sit like a man in fear of the truth. He sat like a man enjoying the spectacle. His golden curls edged his smug face, his eyes dancing with amusement, as if Christine's agony was mere entertainment to him. Every time she looked at him, he leaned farther back in his chair, his lips curling into that same arrogant grin. The prosecutor went on. We have documents. We have diaries. We have letters that establish Christine withheld vital evidence. Evidence that, if disclosed, might have spared this family from tragedy. Instead, she remained silent. Instead, she destroyed. The words were heavy in the air. The jury stirred uncomfortably. Then the prosecutor struck the first blow. He summoned Robin to the stand. Christine's heart fell. Robin strode confidently to the witness box, her shoes clicking like the last nails in a coffin. She took her oath, sat, and glared hard at Christine. Mrs. Brown, the prosecutor started. Can you inform the court of what you know regarding Christine's behavior in the months prior to the family breakup? Robin's tone was biting, laced with feigned sweetness. Christine never wanted us to work. From the start, she insisted she wasn't okay with plural marriage. She complained, she gossiped, she sabotaged Kody, and when things started falling apart, she didn't simply leave. She schemed. She wanted to ruin this family. She wanted to ruin him. Her hand rose, her finger pointed at Kody. The courtroom hummed with murmurs. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. Christine balled her fists. She needed to scream, to yell, to remind all of Robin's manipulations. All the tears. The way she had insinuated herself into Kody's heart, while shutting everyone else out. But Christine remained silent. Not yet was her time. The prosecutor continued. And what do you know about the journals? Robin's eyes sparkled. I know she owned them. I know she read them. And I know she kept them under wraps. Why? Because those journals documented the facts about Kody's challenges, his sacrifices. But really, instead of sharing them with him, she manipulated everything. She made them weapons. Christine's gut churned. That wasn't the truth. And Robin knew it. Her attorney inched forward, whispering, Don't respond. Let her create her own pit. Robin went on, her voice shaking with feigned emotion. She always resented me. She resented seeing me and Kody happy. She couldn't bear that he had finally found someone who loved him completely. She wanted to punish us. And this, she swept her arm across the courtroom. This is her last punishment. Christine's attorney stood up. Objection. Speculation. Sustained, the judge said. But the harm was done. The words were already sowed in the jurors' minds. Robin rose, her smirk still firmly in place. Passing Christine, she leaned to the side, whispering loudly enough. This is only the beginning. Christine's rage coursed through her veins. But she remained seated, her face a rigid mask of composure. The prosecutor then called Janelle next. Christine's chest constricted. Janelle moved slowly to the stand. Her gait was unsteady, her gaze flashing briefly towards Christine. Before dropping, she took the oath and sat, her hands clasped tightly. Mrs. Brown, the prosecutor started. Did Christine ever mention Kody's journals to you? Janelle paused. The silence was enough to have the room tilt forward. At last she spoke. Yes, she said she had them. Christine's heart sank. The prosecutor's eyes flashed. And did she explain why she didn't tell them? Janelle swallowed. She said she was afraid that if the truth were known, it would ruin everything. But her voice broke. She looked at Christine again, her eyes torn with conflict. But I don't know if she was saving us or herself. The courtroom erupted into whispers. The judge pounded his gavel again. Christine blinked her eyes shut for an instant. Janelle's words hurt. They weren't a lie. But they weren't the entire truth either. And that gap between truth and silence was where suspicion spread like fire. The prosecutor smiled again. Thank you, Mrs. Brown. No further questions. Janelle descended, her shoulders burdened. She didn't glance at Christine once more. Mary was up next. When Mary was on the stand, everyone in the room appeared to be holding its breath. She testified in a low voice, almost too softly to be heard. Christine wanted out. I knew she did. I saw it, and when she did leave, I wasn't surprised. But the journals, I didn't know about them. If she had them, then perhaps all of this could have been otherwise. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. She simply lowered her eyes and stepped down. Each testimony felt like another stone placed on Christine's chest. The family was fracturing right before her eyes. Robin's venom, Janelle's uncertainty, Mary's quiet sorrow. And all the while Kody sat there, feeding on it, his smirk never fading. The prosecutor wheeled back to face the jury. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about documents. This is about betrayal. This is about somebody who said they loved this family, and did the exact opposite. The words lingered in the air, cold and heartless. Christine sat stunned, a calm face, but within her heart pounded. She knew the truth. She knew why she had concealed the journals, why she had waited. But the question hung suspended, like a knife over her head. Would the jury believe her truth, or their lies? The gavel came down, ringing in the thick air. The prosecutor sat back, content with the harm already done. The jury had heard the words of the family. The seed of doubt had been planted. Now Christine was up. Her attorney stood slowly, his tone firm. Your Honor, the defense calls Christine Brown to the stand. The courtroom drew in like a breath. Christine's name was a match, and the room was kindling. Each head turned as she rose, smoothing her skirt with shaking hands. Her legs were lead, but her heart pounded with something more powerful than fear: determination. Christine walked toward the witness box, her heels echoing like a countdown to revelation. With every step, she could feel Kody's eyes burning into her back. She could almost hear Robin's hiss of disapproval. She could almost feel Janelle's guilt and Mary's silence weighing her down. But when she rested her, as the room erupted in noise, Christine gathered her papers with trembling hands. Her lawyer leaned close, whispering, "You held your ground. That's all that matters." But Christine wasn't sure. She could still hear the prosecutor's words echoing in her head. Traitor, manipulator. Yuffie, guilty by silence. As she rose, Robin brushed past her, whispering venomously, "You're finished. They'll never believe you." Christine paid her no mind. She turned instead to Janelle, who stood in the doorway, their eyes locked. Janelle's face was torn. Fear, sadness, perhaps even a glimmer of solidarity. But her lips remained sealed. Mary didn't even glance at her. And Kody stood in the rear of the courtroom, arms folded, smirk back in place. As Christine walked by, he leaned forward, his tone low and cold. "You think you're winning, Christine? This is just the beginning. I'll bury you." Christine didn't stop. She didn't respond. But inside she whispered to herself, "You won't bury me, not this time." The courtroom was now a whispering battlefield, gasps of lungs and agitated hearts. Days had passed and turned into hours, and every witness contributed a new pile of firewood to a flame no one could contain. Now the destiny of Christine Brown, survivor, former wife and mother, lay at the hands of 12 strangers in that jury box. The gavel of the judge banged. "Order! The jury has delivered its verdict." The words hung in the air like a thundercloud. Christine's hands shook as she clutched the edge of the defense table. Her attorney leaned in. "Stay strong. No matter what, you've already won your truth." On the other side of the room, Kody sat rigid, his eyes searing holes into her. His smirk was gone, and in its place was a sickly mask of anger. Robin clamped his arm, saying something no one could overhear. Janelle had her face buried in her hands, conflicted between despair and optimism. Mary sat like a statue, her face unreadable, as if she knew something the rest did not. The jury foreman rose, clutching the paper that held Christine's fate. "Kody, verdict." The judge nodded. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." Christine's heart pounded. This was it, the moment that would determine not only her future, but the future of the entire Brown family. The foreman cleared his throat. In the case of Christine Brown, charged with withholding evidence related to the fall of the Brown family. A silence, the quiet was oppressive. "We the jury find the defendant." Christine's eyes were closed. "Not guilty." The room exploded. Gasps, screams, shouting bedlam swirled around her like a tsunami. Christine finally breathed for what seemed like decades, her face wet with tears. She wasn't relieved. She was justified. The aftermath of the verdict. Robin shot up, furious. "This isn't justice." She manipulated everyone. She twisted the truth. Her voice cracked as she tried to reach the jury. "You don't understand. Christine has always hated me, hated us. The judge slammed the gavel. Order! Sit down, Mrs. Brown. But Robin wasn't finished. Her sobs turned into rage. She ruined our family, and now you've given her permission to keep destroying it. Kody tugged her down, his arms clenching. Stop, Robin. But his voice trembled too, the calm facade falling away. Across from them, Janelle was crying openly. She stretched out her hands to Christine, speaking in a breathless whisper through her tears. You did it. You told the truth. You were brave enough to say what we were all too afraid to say. Mary remained quiet, but her eyes flickered with something haunting, like a storm was still brewing inside her. Christine's lawyer leaned over, voice calm but firm. You're free now, Christine. The court cannot hold you. You've won. But Christine knew better. This wasn't a victory. It was only the opening move of a much darker game. Christine faces Kody. As the courtroom cleared, Christine stood up. The pressure of the past few weeks bore down on her, but she steeled herself upright. Cameras flashed, reporters yelled questions. Security attempted to hold back the mob. But Christine's gaze was fixed on one individual. Kody. He stood beside the bench. His jaw clenched, his fists curled up at his sides, his gaze locked with hers. And for an instant the whole room dissipated. Christine moved slowly toward him. Each step resonated with power she didn't even know existed. When she was a few feet closer, she talked softly, so that he alone could hear. It's over, Kody. Your lies are out. You can't control me any longer. His lip twisted into a crooked grin. You think you've won? You think a verdict makes a difference? He moved in close, speaking in a whisper as cutting as glass. This isn't over, Christine. Not by a long way. Her breath hitched, but she did not recoil. She gazed back at him, with unflinching eyes. Then I'll be ready. The family torn apart. Outside the courthouse, the scene was chaos. People shouted Christine's name, some welcoming her freedom, others denouncing her. Microphones thrust into her face, seeking answers. How do you feel, Christine? What does this mean for your relationship with Kody? Did you really hide evidence? Or was this all Kody's fault? Christine lifted her arms, her voice resounding above the mayhem. I spoke the truth. I defied decades of domination and oppression. And today, I walked away free, not only from this courtroom, but from the cell that Kody constructed for us all. Her words resonated through the cameras, broadcast live to millions. Inside the courthouse, the family splintered further. Janelle rushed to Christine's side, pulling her into a hug. You've given us all strength, she whispered. Robin was still sobbing uncontrollably, clinging to Kody. They don't see it. They don't see who she really is. Kody, on the other hand, was eerily quiet now, too quiet. He gazed at Christine, as if inscribing her name in his mind. It wasn't the gaze of a defeated man. It was the gaze of a man calculating his next step. And Mary? She slipped out a back door quietly, face concealed, thoughts hidden. The shadow of what's next. That evening, Christine remained alone in her living room. The verdict echoed repeatedly inside her mind. She should have been able to go free, but she felt something issier instead, unease. On the table were the journals, the proof that had almost killed her but saved her too. She chose one, opening it to the pages of Kody's rage and admissions. For each truth she'd shared, there were further, blacker secrets, hidden in ink that she hadn't been brave enough to divulge. Her phone beeped, one message on the screen. From an unknown number. You exposed him. Now you've made yourself the target. Christine's breath hitched. She looked around the room, the shadows suddenly feeling alive. She didn't know who sent the message, but deep down she already knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot.